word violence often triggers visuals of acts of physical aggression, hurt, or damage. But violence is not just physical. It can be mental, emotional, financial, sexual, or in any other form. Similarly, there can be gender-based violence too, which is directed at an individual based on his or her gender identity. My today's guest is co-founder of one such organization, Bon't Worry, that takes care of gender-based violence. She also works with European Parliament for Editorial Communication Unit Internal policy. Please welcome Asia Guerreschi. Okay. Hi, Asia. We welcome you on our channel and thank you so much for joining us.
For having me.
Asia, it would be great to start this conversation by knowing a little more about your life journey briefly and what made you to get into social entrepreneurship.
So yes, it's been quite a journey. Mostly my interest began quite early. As a young teenager, I was always interested in the environment and animal rights. So that got me in many volunteering charities, some at global level, like Jane Goodall Institute, some a little smaller, like the more national ones in Italy. And within the process, the community is quite tiny, so you always meet the same people over and over again, and you create this larger global community. With that, I then moved to a Bachelor's of Communication to sort of hope that in the process of writing about social action and journalism or spreading awareness, it would help improve many of the issues that we have. When it comes to gender-based violence, I co-founded this charity with my mom, actually, for more of a personal story that I bring with my parents' divorce and many of the issues that arise from, their separation. And I always feel like that if I can do something for someone else, because it's sometimes easier for me to do so, I understand my privileges. I understand I can obviously speak sometimes for those who can't. And so I try my best in my small ways to do so.
Okay, great. So can you let us understand more about your NGO, Bon't Worry, that supports victims of violence of different race, age, or even gender? How do you support? What have been the process through which you have been supporting?
So born in 2015, Bon't Worry was also born again from a personal experience. So we published a testimonial of my mom's experience in her case when it comes to gender-based violence. And with that, we created a network of professionals. Mm-hmm. So through expertise, so we have lawyers, we have psychologists, psychiatrists, for free. We help support also what is a concern, especially in Italy, and quite a bit European level. Often professionals like officers or lawyers are not as qualified to help gender-based violence. Mm-hmm. Often are discriminatory for other issues. So asylum seekers, migrants don't get the attention they should because they just don't quote unquote qualify at a national register level or European level. And there are so many other factors we try to include in the conversation, like climate migration. So people moving due to climate issues in their countries outside of Europe, mm-hmm. and then come in. So the Turkey, Greece issue. And so our part is not only to support gender-based violence without discrimination, mm-hmm. but our second is to work with companies, both at private and public level, as with the governments also role. So we try to work with, we work especially with the UK quite a bit, with the team of Mayor of London. We are close by working with them, especially to educate as much as possible professionals in knowing how to reach the conversation. Often doctors, understandably sometimes because they're a little cold, because they have to be for their job, don't know how to approach the conversation with maybe someone who was raped, someone who was abused, a victim who comes to the hospital and doesn't know how to express what happened. Often the initial shock is, I didn't know it could be me. I don't even think it may have happened. Was I really consenting or not? Like doubts that come to that. And it takes a lot of understanding of the issue from professionals to tell them it happened. It's not happened, but you must speak out to protect yourself.
Right.
Especially with children, or especially if you are an asylum seeker, for instance, or migrant, because it's even harder. So if you speak out, you will find protection. And we try to reach as many network as possible to let them know we are here, give us a call.
Right. So since you have been working with EU also, so I would definitely love to understand how EU has been tackling such issues, what policies have been designed as preventive measures to combat all such issues which are related to violence, specifically to women-related violence. I mean, can you throw some light on it?
So I guess there are three main points when it comes to a EU level. The first one is the EU has been working as well as similar to the way they have dealt with climate. It suddenly became cooler, and so they're talking more about it, because when it comes to gender equality, the Parliament has, the European Parliament has a committee for that, which is called FEMS, for gender equality, but their data, it's not updated. They still work on a survey from 2014, which is very outdated. The Commission has established a EU directive. However, it works at of course it has to work at an EU level, and it establishes and helps victims for those who cross borders, maybe between member states. And it tries to raise awareness at national level. It has, in 2016, signed the Convention of Istanbul, which it helps at a global level to promote and help victims and promote policies that will help protect them. So it has a conversation. But then when you look at the way even committees within the EU, so the environment, the regional, the external affairs, and other committees of the sort, often the conversation of gender equality, which it should include at horizontal level, often it's not added, it's not spoken, or it's limitedly spoken about to domestic violence, rape, but very common, straight man rapes a straight woman. There is no man rapes, I don't know, transsexual. There is, again, even the inclusion of the conversation of the LGBT community is not often added. And there must be an improvement in data collection. On that point, there's also the understanding that collecting data, it's not easy. You cannot go around as easily and ask people, have you been abused? Have you been raped? How is your situation at home? There should be an evolution, at least for the EU level we're speaking about now, an evolution in the culture of the conversation, even among nationals. You know, even among citizens, knowing what is happening, why is there a problem? If it's a problem, how can we deal with it? Even to a minor level. The positive part about the definition, which is not unfortunately spoken about too much, is that the EU includes the conversation that so violence against women includes also economical damage, psychological. So on the sector, they are improving a bit, but there are not strong policies that help, say, parents divorce. There was a case of domestic violence. What's the children? What's going to happen to the economical standing of the woman who stays on her own because maybe, you know, because she was affected by the violence she lived, it would not then help her maybe feel confident, feel protected and safe if she was to look for a job again. Often violence against women at professional levels. There's so among the majority of member states have reported that over 50% of even verbal abuse, psychological abuse within the national parliaments. In the previous legislature last year, or obviously the 2019 elections, the majority of MEPs, so members of the European Parliament, were men. And so it's very hard then to open the conversation. I mean, I'm sure male representatives try to do that, But if you're female, the understanding probably could be easier, I guess.
Right. And during this pandemic, COVID-19, there are news from across the world that domestic violence is on rise, and I'm sure many European countries must be facing this problem. How your organization, Bon't Worry, have been dealing with such issues where you feel that you cannot physically access those women because due to lockdown or due to this pandemic, but you want to help them, you need to help them. How do you feel, or how you have been helping in these 4 or 5 months ever since this pandemic has come in this world? How have you been making your efforts?
So one issue that came with the lockdown, especially within the last 3 months, so in Italy, the lockdown, and I'll make a national example just to facilitate more the policy understanding. In Italy, we had a lockdown for 3 months. We're out of it. Because of the lockdown, it has been recorded an increase of domestic violence. However, it's because it was very inclusive. So in home, you cannot talk, you're stuck there, we can say, quote unquote. It has been harder than to go to the victims and help them out because we don't know in that sense. So we offer, we are very connected on social media and our website, and we make sure to always, with the interviews like this one, to let people know the website is 24/7. We are always available, we receive emails, and even social media, and we try to go through more simpler communication protocols to get them to tell that something's happening and maybe closer to the issue. So if they cannot speak too much about it, we can understand. So obviously our charity doesn't get random messages. If we get a quick random messages, it means someone is asking for help. So we try to communicate in very subtle ways with the police officers, of course. And during lockdown, we try to follow the same protocol with social, with the procedures, while still following, of course, the COVID regulations that were applied. But it has been harder. Of course, it has been harder because we don't get victims to tell us. They're stuck at home, and children are not going to school, which makes it harder often because they have to assist in the house to fights, to unpleasant events, and generally, and that comes with the title also of the publication before the charity was founded, which goes, you don't have to die to get help, because unfortunately it's reported that the majority of homicides at a level, especially, are recorded of women dying are because of a family member, or because of a friend, or because someone they knew who were violent against them. And so you reach the point where you're already in the damage before you can go. So that's also been harder to go out and say, we've tried through social media and online processes to go out and say, this is not good. Psychological abuse may turn into physical one. So make sure that you stop it beforehand. And so we tried in smaller ways, a little harder, but I wanted to add something that is often not spoken about when it comes to violence against women or gender-based violence, which is, so my background also includes a study of climate science. So I did a master's in physical geography, and I hope to pursue more research in that field. And because violence against women is an argument that should be included at every level, often when it comes to the climate, we don't understand, or there's little understanding within the field, that if there's an issue with climate, women and children will be affected first. And so that's an addition that I would like to add to this conversation, especially with the increasing amount of climate migrants, like I said before, people moving because they cannot live. So you have, unfortunately, we've seen many pregnant women coming into London, many women losing their children, many children without having to be affected by other kinds of violence, even boys. That's also another addition to the conversation, is that young boys are also, violated, unfortunately, by family members, by relatives, and that is also important because we include women and girls because unfortunately women are those with an amount of violence perpetuated by men. However, a little part of that story is that while you spread awareness of violence against women, there should be also spreading awareness about violence against boys, violence against men, which can be included in the conversation, because often men who are unhappy with their state is because they may have received violence when they were children. They may have survived, violence of other kinds. And so if you also help and include them, as well as the majority with women and girls and that kind, that sector, of course, of the population, as well as including the LGBT, you help spread the awareness even among these different groups of people, and you improve the understanding of what violence is. Violence can also be psychological. So generally, statistics shown that women are affected more by, men are more violent, women are more psychological. So if a woman is applying violence, she's applying more psychological violence, which cannot be determined. So maybe men don't feel obliged to say, I feel abused, I feel like I'm not respected, I don't, and so it can turn into more of a physical violence, and it's counterproductive. Of course, women are, being victims as well. The most numbers show that. But again, even with young boys, they're told, you cannot feel emotions. That's those very stereotypical and still old thinking of, you cannot feel emotions. You cannot, go tell someone, I feel sad, I feel whatever it is. And mental health and mental awareness of what's happening to anybody, it's very essential in this conversation as well.
And finally, Asia, how do you think each one of us, each woman in this world, can strengthen herself?
Sorry, could you repeat it? The connection, I lost a bit.
Okay. How do you think that each one of us, each woman in this world, can strengthen herself?
Possibly the first step could be understanding how we think of the problem. So are we fair in how we think of the problem? Are we inclusive? Are we open to the conversation? Are we willing to tell, okay, maybe I'm actually biased. I am a white woman. Am I biased? I have to be careful. It's a natural human tendency, maybe depending on where we grew up, our culture, our education, to how we think of a problem. So the first step should be, how do I think of the problem? Could I improve? The second one is reading, understanding, being informed, even on a more lighthearted level. What is happening in my country? What is my country doing? And then the third and most important one is when we are being told something by someone who's sharing something very, personal about something they lived, before making any assumption or judgment, say, it could have affected them. Is there any way I can help them? Is there any way I can just speak out? And of course, the fourth one is be courageous. Often, and this not only directed to the victims, but directed to anybody around them. Often society's pressure stops them from, being able to say, I know that family is that wife, very simple example, that wife is victim of violence. Will I say something? Will I go knock on the door and do you need help? Can I do something? And being so attentive in how you do that is also very important. So obviously going knocking on the door is not a good example, but sort of the trying in a way to make sure that you know how your community is living. And if you see something, it's very easy to say and hard to do, but if you see something, say something. That is an example. And be courageous of standing up for someone else who won't be giving anything back to you, or you're just doing something good for them.
Right. So Asia, thank you so much for having such an insightful conversation with us. We truly appreciate for you taking time out of your busy schedule, and we wish you all the best for your all future endeavors and projects. And thank you so much for being with us once again.
Thank you for having me again.
Thank you guys for watching. Take care and see you. Bye.